My own. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the performer takes the risk. It's a lonely place. It's a fascinating, lonely place.
Welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries brought to you by Treble Media. We're at Rock Docs Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, other places. I'm Dave Lizabram, and today's movie is Grace Jones' Bloodlight and Bami. It's selected by our super awesome special guest, Kyp Malone. Most well-known for the band TV on the Radio, although he's also got his solo stuff, as you'll hear about, and other really cool projects. Just a super incredibly nice guy, in addition to being unbelievably talented and the producer of so much great music and art. And yeah, he picked this movie. He picked a good one. It's a really super fun conversation. And yeah, I mean, as you can hear in my voice, we were just incredibly thrilled, pleased, and honored to get to a chance to speak to Kyp about this film. And here's that conversation. All right, welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries. I'm Dave Lizabram, here with my co-host
Andrew Keats.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about the documentary Grace Jones, Bloodlight and Bami. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. I know I'm pronouncing Grace Jones right, but not Bami, which is from 2017, directed by Sophie Fiennes. And this is one of our guest episodes. We have a very special guest who selected this film. That person is Kyp Malone, most well known for the band TV on the Radio, but also many other musical and other projects. You want to say hi, Kyp? Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Man, Kyp, got to tell you, you came out swinging with this documentary choice, because I was not prepared for what we got to sit through for those couple hours, man. Tell me a little bit about your sort of relationship with this movie.
I got to attend a premiere event for it at a Metrograph Theater in Manhattan a few years ago, and the director Sophie Fiennes and Grace Jones were there doing a Q&A afterwards, and it was a very nice night, a very nice crowd of people, and I was honestly, I just watched it again, and I hadn't seen it since then, and I remembered being very impressed by the film at the premiere, but watching it again, it's just like the level of intimacy that Sophie Fiennes was able to achieve with her was incredible.
Yeah,
like that's a very rare thing from what I've seen. Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it in this level of intimacy. I mean, I'm sure there might be something out there, but I've never seen anything where you just are with her and in such a I mean, it just seems like you're in the room, just a one-on-one way with her, and not even when they're like doing exceptional things necessarily. It's just her being herself, or her being around her family. It is really remarkable, the level of intimacy they achieve.
A lot of times we start these just by kicking around, everybody's relationship with the artist. So I guess we'll kind of do that. Like, Andy, so what was, before watching this film, how much did you know about Grace Jones? You may not know that much more after watching the film, but we'll get to that. But how much of her music and her art and her whole vibe were you familiar with?
Yeah, I had almost no familiarity with her. I didn't know her music. I knew her by reputation as a person who was big in Studio 54. And then when I got really into the Infidels album, the Bob Dylan album Infidels, and started to learn more about Sly and Robbie, I learned that they had this long relationship with somebody named Grace Jones, but I didn't know her. I didn't know her music at all. So I came into this basically as blind as you could. And I mean, it's wild coming in that way because you're just introduced to her on such an intimate level right away, and they don't preface it with any like scene setting biographical information, like, hey, welcome to this documentary about this person you're going to see. The year is X and here's what she's done so far. Like, there's none of that stuff. They just sort of trust you to be able to figure things out, or to recognize that it doesn't matter how much of that you know.
Yeah. Being a little bit older than you, I think I had more of a knowledge of what she was about. I mean, I definitely remember in the 80s, like her films, like, the James Bond movie and the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan movie and all that stuff. Boomerang. I'm sure you've seen Boomerang. Come on.
Yeah, I've seen Boomerang, but I saw Boomerang, but I didn't know that was her.
Right.
Like I knew that movie.
Right. But I mean, I'm sure I must have seen like some videos on like early MTV in the early 80s or whatever. But, I don't have that much of a relationship with their music. But from time to time, I've kind of gone back because she's like, she's sort of was almost one of these people that, like, when I was a kid was sort of famous for being famous. Like, not that she didn't earn it or deserve it, but like she just kind of was one of these iconic people that you could reference and everybody would kind of know, the visual or whatever. And so from time to time, I like kind of like you a little bit, like I've kind of gone back and checked out the music, and I know, Love Is the Drug and some of those other hits that are, I didn't really know that she had written a lot of her own or co-written a lot of her own music. Like, I knew her more as a cover artist, like, Warm Leatherette, stuff like that. But definitely not like a deep head. I'm not even sure I could have said she was from Jamaica. Like, I just kind of knew Grace Jones, famous person, etc. Kyp, I don't. Were you like already deep into Grace Jones at this point when you went to the film?
No, I definitely was, took her in by osmosis when I was a kid because she was ubiquitous, for a period of time in the 80s. But it was more just like, yeah, there's a lot of people back then that seemed to me that they were famous for being famous. Like, it's like the same way that I viewed Bowie when I was a kid. I was just like the modern love guy and didn't like, I wasn't against it or anything, but I didn't understand the resonance or why these people held the cultural importance that they held. Yeah, I in the past decade or so, maybe longer ago than that, when TV was touring a lot and doing festivals in Europe, there was a period of time where she was headlining, and I got to see her perform live a few times, and that was eye-opening because she's an incredible performer, and like she was already in her she was up there. I don't remember how old she was when I first saw her, but she was like had more physical endurance than all of the out of shape dudes in my band at that time who were half her age,
Yeah. I was trying to do the math in this movie about how old she must have been for some of these performances. And I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's truly stunning. She's in incredible shape. Her energy level is through the roof. She's putting on the same level of intensity and energy on a stage show that you would see from like a 20-something-year-old pop star, and she had to have been near 70 when the footage in this movie was put together.
Yeah,
and the voice too. The voice is there, like exactly as it was.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a funny thing to talk about when you're talking about an elder and like in 2023 with three dudes talking and everything. But I mean, she was a model, and she was definitely presented herself as a sex positive, like a sexually empowered artist. And so I feel like I can talk about her body without being like, without it coming off as gross or disrespectful. She has an amazing body still. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I know her physical presentation is part of her art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, she says at that one point, and you get the impression that she was up all night partying.
Mhm.
Like, 70-something-year-old woman, she's up all night partying. She's getting ready the next day, and she's checking out her own body, and she goes, maybe I should have got up and done my weights today.
Right.
Like, like
Right. Like, there's no question at any age she could kick any of our asses.
Right.
But hey, fitness is part of her thing, and that's good. I think that's could be a positive
I mean, it's
message
like,
as well.
sort of, I mean, it's sort of Springsteen-esque, in the same sense that, like, when you watch Springsteen at his current age, it's just like, how does this man have this much
It's
energy?
like,
He's,
his kind of got a marathon thing going on.
yeah.
I think music, though, like, not to immediately like drift into mysticism, but like, I know, I've not taken care of myself on tour or been like actually just sick on tour, like not sure I could stand up for 20 minutes without shitting myself or something. And once the music starts and once you're in the vibration of the music, like it does a lot of work for carrying you. That's been my experience. So like, I think it's it can either take you out when you're very young or it can like sustain you.
Yeah.
Well, it also seems like she's cultivated such a like amazing relationship with her fans and her audience that like they're giving that energy back. You know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
there's a very brief scene and we should talk a little bit about what the movie's about. But basically, it seems like it was filmed over a period of many years. Sophie Fiennes, basically is just like there's, like we said, there's no voiceover. There's no titles telling you who Grace Jones is, what she's done, where she's from, etc. It's just like you're there. There are scenes of her performing. Only now there's no look back scenes. It's not like they're cutting in footage of her performing in 1981. It's all present.
It's all present, yeah.
And then there's footage of her just going through her life, recording an album, interacting, dealing with negotiating with record companies and things like that, meeting fans, and a lot of time with her in Jamaica, kind of connecting with her family that maybe, it seemed like some people that she hadn't really been in touch with for a while. And that's really what the movie is. Like, you're just following verite style this experience. But there's a brief scene at the beginning of the movie where she performs, and then you see after when she's kind of signing stuff, and she's just surrounded by these fans, and she tells them like straight up, like, okay, I'll sign one thing per person. Like this isn't her first rodeo. She's setting the rules and the boundaries and context, and like the fans are sort of delirious. Like after this performance, they're so full of energy and love, and somebody's like, I've been waiting 30 years to meet you, this is so exciting. And you could tell that she hears this all the time. But still, it's like it is very intimate, because it does give you a sense of like where she gets her energy from, where she gets her motivation, and that back and forth. I think that's kind of all you need to get that kind of setting the tone at the top of the film of like who this person is, what she means. And then you can go into the personal side, and it's such a skillful way to do it.
That we were talking about like what a level of familiarity with her work or her persona. I say that I took her in by osmosis, and I did, and like I heard her on the radio, I heard her at clubs, I danced to her music, and something that this film did that actually like it should be so obvious, and I'm actually this is not an astute observation. It's kind of, when I think about the fact that it was like revelatory to me, I'm kind of embarrassed. But like seeing how narrative her songs are and how like autobiographical they are, like I just don't associate that with dance music. I don't, even though dance music obviously is a folk music, like somehow like it was very surprising to me when she started like basically like talking about her life, talking about her childhood, and then like showing how it was reflected in, I think, more recent music, but also in like older music as well. Like,
yeah, and they draw it out because they'll have a very specific conversation about so the two sides of their family,
Mm-hmm.
and then that drops right into the song, "Got the Williams blood in
Mm-hmm.
me." And now you have the context of what they were
Talking about,
talking about. So you go, oh my goodness, oh okay, wow. She's saying like the crazy side of the family, mom, like
Yeah.
that's the part I
Yeah.
got, and that's the song, that and also I just realized I was going through my notes to our conversation about how amazingly vital she seems. They do. I got to laugh when they're on the bus and they're talking about. It's just like it looks like it's just a bunch of people, maybe 2 or 3 generations and cousins and stuff from one family, and I think they're on a bus in Jamaica. And one guy says, "Everybody in the Jones family, did you notice they act younger when they get older?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that so weird about this family?" And it struck me just because I think that's like a very funny observation for somebody to have about their like extended family, to be like, when these people get older, they actually start acting younger. But then I realized it actually is I think maybe supposed to be foreshadowing for what we're about to see from this woman.
Yeah.
That that she's acting or able to still act as at the very least as young as she ever always has.
I mean, her mother was vital.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And how old must her mom have been in that scene? Yeah, and her mom is like lucid and like making jokes
still
and bouncing
performing at church, like still, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a cool scene where they go to church and I mean, they're telling you enough to know that this is a very important part of their family.
Yeah.
You can look up on Wikipedia or read about, her background and the stepfather was a preacher or whatever the case may be, but enough to know that this is a very serious, important part of their family and their culture. And yeah, she goes and you see her sitting in church. And it's not some fancy, like mega church like we have, like like you might have in Orange County or something. Like it's
like a country church, yeah.
Yeah, real country.
Exactly.
And she's just sitting in the back kind of vibing while her mom is singing a hymn. And it's like, wow, yeah, it's really, you can really see where it comes from. But she translated it to a totally different context, of course.
Certainly.
She rebelled, but also not in a way, she rebelled, but not in a way of rejecting her roots, is kind of the sense that I get.
Yeah.
She just took it to a different place.
I mean, a bunch of different places. That was something on the second viewing that I was thinking about, is like the amount of code switching, but it's like that's like maybe not even like the best categorization of what she's doing, but just like seeing her talk to different people in different circumstances, in different countries, and like speaking to them from where they're at and in their voice, and like whether she was like talking to her American niece and like talking to her like in American, or talking patois, or talking French, or talking to British people, and like just being able to jump from like authentically jump from voice to voice to voice to voice, which isn't an act. It's like a reflection of the life that she's lived.
Right.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the one through line that she has through all of those conversations is an incredible disappointment that people do not stay up and party as they used to in each of those places.
She's like, what happened? We would have been up till God knows,
She's like, Paris, she's disappointed that no one's out. New York, she's disappointed that no one's out. Everywhere she goes, she's like, what? And she's like, she talks to some young model and she's like, wait, you're going to bed? Like, honey, we used to stay up all the way until the shoot. Yeah.
That is so good. Yeah. I mean, look, you get a documentary, you get, they're telling you, they're presenting whatever they're presenting. Fidelity to the truth, you don't know. But she seems like a person who enjoys being Grace Jones. Meaning, we watch a lot of documentaries that are about like the suffering of famous people, and I'm not saying that's not part of life or true, but or that she hasn't dealt with 10 billion times more shit than I ever will. But she seems to be very happy being who she is, and she doesn't seem to be carrying around regret or shame or just anxiety or distress about being so famous. I mean, she's so tall, and so striking that, she seems like, even when she dresses down and she's wearing just like a t-shirt and a baseball cap, wherever, like it seems like around the world, people are going to be able to clock her immediately. And, you don't really see a lot of that in the movie, but you just get a sense that she is very comfortable in her own skin. And it's pretty cool. Maybe, I don't know if she was always that way. She certainly always presented herself that way.
Yeah.
But, maybe that's just life experience.
It seems, yeah. I mean, it seems like she is someone that has had plenty of fire the whole time. Maybe there's a scene where she's talking to someone about punching some journalist or television presenter on camera at some point in her youth, like when her first single came out and she was being disrespected on camera.
But she always gives a warning, she said.
Yeah.
No matter what. It seems like, she has a policy about slapping somebody, and she will warn you. But after that, it's game on, I guess.
So one of the, when early in the movie, she gets in a fight with Sly and Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
And we only hear her side of it. She, it's just camera on her while she's on the phone. Sly and Robbie, we should say, making their triumphant Rock Docs return after what was the name of that very cheap Bob Dylan documentary we saw with them?
Yeah, I think it was Bob Dylan Beyond the Rainbow. Kyp, you may not have heard of this one because it is like it's one of those documentaries that's like just they don't have the rights to any of the music, and it's a lot of British music reviewers, British music critics just talking about it rather. But we had a lot of fun with that movie.
Except Sly and Robbie. Sly and Robbie do appear in the movie.
They show up and they just absolutely own it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Their story is that they show up to the studio and Bob shows up with. Yeah. So, when she's yelling at them, she says, she starts yelling and says basically like, "Look, I'm paying for this record. There's no record studio, and now you want to tell me that, or there's no
label,
there's no
label
company here,
yeah.
And now you want to go work with there's no label, there's no label. You want to go work with some other person that I've never heard of before. Like, we already scheduled this. You're taking money out of my pockets." We don't see the resolution of that fight, but when we cut back to her in the studio, Sly and Robbie are there.
Yeah.
So like, she won that fight one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, that's, I don't want to she's been working since before I, had hair on my face, and the amount of bullshit that I imagine she had to contend with in that industry, like, which is actually crazy to think about, because you think about the stature that she holds, like, and like just seeing her perform and like knowing her iconic status and her, like, what she, like, being like a feminist icon and a queer icon, and like that, like, was like famous like through AIDS, through through so many changes in the industry and changes in formatting and everything. There was something about that conversation that like was deeper to me, in that like in a just world there would be no question that she would be given the resources to continue to grow and express herself as an artist without any kind of anyone telling her that she doesn't know what she's doing. But knowing what from my limited, by comparison, like experience with that industry, like, I know that she dealt with bullshit the whole time, So it's kind of amazing to see her still like having to, like, I mean, that's a part of the creative process, in like, you have to have a will to make shit happen, I guess, no matter what your circumstance, no matter who you are. But like, was kind of it made me think about there is an injustice there that she has to be having that conversation at all. I think anyway.
Yeah. Well, and then it's followed right up. Maybe within 10 minutes, she is performing, I believe, in Paris, and she has the argument with the producer that the way it's staged, the way the production has been put on, it's very clearly meant to be that she is a pimp in this in like a in a whorehouse.
Yeah,
she says,
yeah, it's like a.
And the guy tries to pretend. He's like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, of course, that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like a.
And then she's,
it's a.
Well, and she says the same thing. She says, "Well, oh well, it doesn't matter. Like this is what's paying for the record.
Yeah.
So like I'll do, yeah."
Yeah, I mean, she deals with things with humor, so it's we can all agree that, certainly an artist of her stature, many other artists should be given, the opportunity to continue to grow and pursue their art. But she uses every tool in her toolbox, right? Her stature, her physical stature, her status, her, anger and humor and all these other things to get what she needs. And you could tell that this isn't, she's been doing this her whole life.
Yeah.
But, it's okay to laugh and find it amusing when she's using humor to kind of get her point across or as an aside to the camera or whatever. I mean, you're meant to be brought into that.
Absolutely.
That's kind of part of it.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of her charm. That's what she's doing. But
yeah, that was a funny scene though, because
so then it goes.
It seems like she had some like, she anticipated that it was going to be corny in some way, but she didn't know that it was going to be like this like played out sexual fantasy that someone was like projecting her into the middle of. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because it's in the dressing room. She hasn't even seen the stage yet. She's like, I hope it's not corny. And then it is. And she just needed to find out exactly how they had made him put her up in some corny thing.
And one thing she says at that is like, she says, I'm not quoting exactly, but she says, we are visual artists. And so we know how it should be. And it's interesting that she says we. She's talking to her team there or the other people around her. You don't really get anybody else's name really, but she's kind of talking to the camera also. Maybe she's talking to the director,
to Sophie.
Maybe
Yeah,
at the very least. Yeah, you don't really know. But the point is, she's bringing the way it's used in the film is to bring you in. Like, we understand what this should be, or we have a aesthetic sense, and we know other people in the world don't.
Yeah,
and
we know what images mean.
Negotiate that.
She knows. Right. She knows all about the symbology of things. She knows and it's also interesting to think about that statement in context with like her choices of fashion and her doing her own makeup and like how significant that is, and how like I don't know from a scumbag rock and roll angle, like it's often something that is not considered like meaningful or something, or it's like something that could easily be dismissed, but like it's so significant in her presentation, and yeah, you're a visual artist. You're making yourself the canvas, and you're presenting exactly what you want to present every time.
I mean, if you go on a stage, there's a visual aspect to it, regardless of whether you just are wearing your street clothes. That's fine, but all those things go in. It's not like it's not thought through. It's not like you didn't notice what you're wearing.
Right.
Well, and we should say, at this point in the movie, we've probably had at least 2 full performances. I would guess. I don't have them in my notes, but the performances themselves are striking. I mean, absolutely some of the best live performances I've seen on film in a long time. It was reminding me of the first time I saw Stop Making Sense, where it's just the stage construction is so considered and so articulated, and her performance is so matched with the whole thing. I mean, she is a visual artist, and from her look to her physicality and her performance. And then the set design is all really, really incredible stuff, and the directing from I assume that's Sophie did all of that as well. I presume that wasn't somebody else's footage of the concert, but that was all. And throughout the movie, that stuff really is standout material, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's Love Is the Drug is the one where she's wearing like this like British style bowler hat that's like covered in rhinestones or something like that, and then there's like green, basically laser looking lights
Right.
directly over her head. So she's standing like right on her mark, and I'm like, wow, she's like hitting the mark exactly. Like if you move off like a foot, the light's not going to hit that hat,
And
but
it
it's
becomes
hitting
like a
that. It's
disco
just
ball.
shooting these
Her
lasers.
head's a disco
Yeah,
ball.
and but there's like green lasers shooting out of her head everywhere, and it's so incredible. And it's like it's an effect that doesn't. Like, it's not like, you know, the U2 Sphere where it cost $1 billion to achieve this effect. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like anybody could do this, but you have to have that visual sense and work with the, you know, either she comes up with the ideas herself or works with the right people where you can pull that off. And it's so effective and so cool that you can just get that sense of like not having seen her in concert, that it must be just really, you know, people must really anticipate the opportunity to see her because you just don't know what you're going to see, but you know that it's going to be striking and powerful. And yeah, it's like, you know, that I always do wonder about that, Kyp, because, you know, there is the thing where like, you know, most of the rock bands that I see, they're not presenting themselves visually the same way, even though they might look and say like they love David Bowie or Elton John or other, you know, quote unquote conventional rock artists that were very focused on visual presentation. But I do kind of wonder about that. Like when you get to the point where people are looking at you, how much thought goes into that?
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot, but I'm just kind of, I don't know. I always do wonder about it.
I know that there in TV and the radio there was like two camps. It felt like there was like the like pretending to be in Fugazi and like that considering what you wore or was like in it like an embarrassing extravagance or something. And then me and Jaleel, I don't want to speak for him, but we would fight over clothes sometimes, like because we'd end up with getting the same type of thing, and then being like, "You can't wear that because I'm going to wear that. So you can't wear that." but I think that there's definitely like in somehow things got like with Gen X kind of conservative and kind of regressive. I don't know what the material conditions were. I haven't really thought about it actually. What made that happen? But like I and besides the fact of like lo-fi and like thrift store chic being a thing, like there weren't, you know, there was I can't think of a generational analog to Grace Jones or Prince or Boy George or Madonna or any of these people that were like really playing with gender presentation, really playing with overt sexuality. It seems like it skipped us and like it's just coming back full force with like the young millennials and Gen Z or something. And I'm sure that has more to do with like broader historical things than anything else. I don't think that we're like inherently more square, you know, but somehow.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about your peers. I mean, I would say like the White Stripes obviously had a look, and you know, Karen O, you know, certainly inspired by the same way. So I think it's out there. I'm not, you know, so it's not that it totally skipped you, but maybe it wasn't expected or required or something.
Yeah, somehow like out of hardcore and out of all of that, it somehow like you were. It encouraged a dressing down or something.
I mean, you mentioned Fugazi, and Ian MacKaye is as committed to a look over a 40+ year period as Grace Jones is, right? I mean, there's no, it's just a different look.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you could go as Ian MacKaye for Halloween if you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Grace Jones. Exactly.
I mean, respect to like I'm not like dissing in any way. Like I don't always want to stand out, and then sometimes I really do. You know, it's just like.
So we should say there's a few like pretty heavy moments in this movie, and they all relate to the patriarch of the extended family that she grew up in. His name was Mas P.
Mm-hmm.
And basically sounds like he just brutally beat all of the children in her family, and sounds like also just in like the little town right around where she grew up.
Yeah.
And that he used to make them read Bible verses while he whipped them, and had different whipping devices displayed on the walls that they would have to select, or were based on how bad they had been. And I mean, it's very heavy footage. What hearing her and her family members talk about it, but it also, she relates it back very quickly to her art. When she says that, I believe she says she had a conversation with her acting coach, who told her that when she becomes that male dominant persona on stage, she's channeling.
Yeah, she's channeling Mass P. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, because you're moving through this movie, and all of a sudden you get into that, and you're like, whoa, okay, we're dealing in like
deep family trauma
waters.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's deep waters. It's deep family trauma, and it's talking about gender playing in very heavy terms. It's very interesting, and she's incredibly matter of fact about it. You never even see like a tear in her eye recounting this stuff. She's steeled to it.
No, yeah, it seems like she's integrated it very well and like done. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's another scene where she's like talking to the audience over a performance, like talking about like the amount of psych doctors she had seen, and like having to eventually just like find her own way with it. It seems like she has. I mean, I'm not. We documentaries, cameras on. There is always. I mean, just conversation. There's a performance happening. It's like persona. But like from the looks of her life as it is reflected in the documentary, it seems like she's done a very good job of dealing with that trauma. But it was, and that's also the fact of the inclusion of that is like, that is where you're like, oh, this is not some kind of monster. This is which is like, I think a very good movie. P.S. Like, I really like that movie.
No doubt.
And also like that movie shows more about band archetypes than any conversation about the Beatles to me, anyway.
Right.
I'm a Lars, unfortunately, I think. But like that when they get to that, it's like that's a level of intimacy that Sophie was able to achieve, and that Grace was willing to share, that like kind of like makes the film even more transcendent than like it. That could have not been included, and it would have still been a pretty deep look. But like that really, well, I don't know. I don't think it. It's hard to say what, but like, yeah, it is a looking at someone talking about healing trauma through their work, and then also like people, adult people talking about their childhood pain, and without like without bitterness and without like anger. Like it's actually a very inspiring thing.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like she is resentful to anyone for who could have done more to stop this, or shouldn't have, or even just why did this happen to me. There seems to be none of that. It's all integrated into what meaning did I derive from this, and how did I how did I change because of this, and how am I the way that I am because of this.
There's no, in her way of discussing these things, there's no like therapy speak, and maybe it's just a generational thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But it doesn't have that kind of practiced. Okay, we have the appropriate language to frame this, and we're going to use it now because which is fine. I mean, I'm not knocking that either. But it's just a different approach to things, and it seems to be working for her. At least in terms of what you see in the film. But it's, again, this movie is so, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be surprised, because she's always been a person that seems to be very confident in herself and upfront and willing to reveal herself as part of her art. And I guess probably saw this film as part of that, but it is kind of shocking at times to be brought in that intimately into somebody's life. You expect that from a documentary, but not all documentaries intend to do that, and certainly they don't all deliver.
Yeah.
Well, and she puts herself in his mind a little bit, and she does that whole thing. She says, "Well, I was much older before I realized that he had made a conscious decision not to have children, and then all of a sudden he had 5 children,
Right.
and how must that have felt for him? He, and she says, it was changed my worldview when I realized that, and I was much older." Which is, I don't think many people are probably trying to associate on those terms with the abusive figure.
Yeah.
Although maybe people are.
The kind of similar thing, the thread that ties that together, I think, in the film is then you see her apparently meeting her baby grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like, I don't know if it's for the first time or, but she, all of a sudden you see her like holding this infant.
Mm-hmm.
And what she does with this, I mean, this is like a newborn. And, having been around a few newborns, like their eyes are basically shut, like they'll kind of open their eyes a tiny bit from time to time, but mostly like the eyes are shut. And like, she's kind of like playing with the light. So she's holding her hand next to the baby's eyes and kind of moving it so the light kind of shines in and out of the baby's eyes, and the baby like opens their eyes a little bit from time to time. I think it's a girl. It's like it's her. I don't know. It was almost like it felt like she was transferring her visual sense, her way of seeing the world to this baby.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like, like a sweet, funny little game. Like it wasn't, but also, yeah, it seemed like she was sharing something down generations in a way. I don't know if I was just like over reading into that, but I was very moved by that.
Like introducing the strobe light.
Yeah. we have a disco ball for you in baby size.
I've noticed these kids are going to bed way too early lately, and you're not going to be part of this trend.
This baby is partying.
Yeah. Well, and so her son, Paolo, is on tour with them throughout the movie. I thought I kind of got the sense when I was watching the movie that he was just there when they were in Jamaica, going back and sort of doing a sort of family reunion type thing. But then you see at the end, he's in the band. He plays percussion in her band. So he's probably there all the time, just to, because that's his job as well. Right. And it's fleeting moments. So I'm reading more into this, but it seems like she has a very warm and loving relationship with her son. Just the ease that they have around each other on camera, in that scene and in a few other scenes as well.
Yeah, it didn't set off any alarms at all from witnessing it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. At the very least, I could say that it set off no alarms. Yeah. Right.
We should also.
He is the son of Jean-Paul Gouden.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Right.
He who shows up briefly in the film, and seems like that's a complicated relationship as well.
Complicated,
you don't get a lot of that.
For sure, but also it is also showing a side of like there is a different type of sweetness that she is sharing with him, and just talking about, even though it doesn't seem like they're like together or anything at this point, like it, or that was the impression I got. But like she had a different type of tenderness about that relationship.
We should shout out the band, because I mean, there's one thing about this film. It's like sometimes in music documentaries you get like brief clips of performance, but this is one of those films where it's like really like you get a whole song and then some documentary stuff and then a whole song. It's that kind of format.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when it works and when the person carries it off, like I love that. And man, her band just kicks ass. I mean, they're so good.
Absolutely. That performance of Pull Up to the Bumper is like, I'm like pumping my fist.
Yeah,
this is incredible stuff. It's so good.
They captured some very, very, very good performances, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you've like you said, you spoke about seeing her perform on stages that you shared, so to speak, and I'm assuming that the caliber of musician she works with is always top notch. I would
Yeah,
assume.
yeah, world class musicians for sure. I mean, they better be. I'm not I'm not auditioning for that band. That's not what I do.
I mean, imagine putting up a bar band behind her.
Right.
I mean, like oh, that would be
Like
that would
she
be
could
tough,
she
man.
couldn't tour Chuck Berry style, where she
Right.
just rolls into town. It's like night clubbing. Let's do it. Although maybe
Yeah.
it would kick ass. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be she would just elevate the people around her
Yeah.
to
I mean,
her level.
she
Yeah,
does also
that's
say
true.
that in this, like, very close to the end of the film, like eating oysters in the hotel in a bathrobe, talking about that, like, if the ceiling caved in and there was no PA, that like I could rock it with no lights in the dark.
Yep.
I could rock it. Like, I actually believe that, and
Yes,
that's also
she
like
does say that.
an inspiring stance to hear someone have, because like it's not an unearned just like ego fantasy. She's been rocking it for a long time.
Well, and the sense I got from her wasn't even that it was bravado as much as her saying like, that's my job. Like,
Yeah.
if they are going to put all these people are going to put this performance together, the responsibility is on me to, if whatever goes wrong, to deliver that.
Yeah.
That's what I bring to the table.
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of that is true also just because of the gift she has with her voice, which I don't think I knew of before the film, because the film includes pieces of her singing all different types of things. She sings Amazing Grace, which is like, of course, maybe like, appropriate because of her background and her name and everything else. And it's like, wow, like she's like a gospel singer, and she sings La Vie en Rose and other things that I wasn't as familiar with, because I know of her music from the early 80s when she was, it's kind of like that early rap thing was kind of like adjacent to that. So she's sort of talk singing a little bit in some of the early songs that I was familiar with,
Like,
and that's not a knock on it. That's just the style.
Early rap, or
but,
even industrial music or something. Yeah, like it's like the monotone, like
right. She's not
driving
intending
monotone.
to. Right, she's not intending to use the full range of her
driving
voice in that
Yeah.
type of music. And if you're just not paying attention, or just hear it and you're not familiar with her, it can have a little bit of that, like, my name is Grace Jones and I'm here to say, kind of like early, you know what I mean? Like a little bit of that vibe, but like there's a lot more there. But
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is like, some of the hits or music from the 80s that are more familiar, but that I might have heard in the past, don't show off her full range because that wasn't what she was trying to do. And it's like, okay, she can do that, and that's great. And then you see her like just belting, and it's like she like at 70 whatever years old, and it's like, wow, this person can. Is there anything she can't do? It's impressive. It's beautiful.
They didn't. There was no scenes of this in the film, but she did. I've seen her do a lot of encores while she was hula hooping and singing simultaneously, which is like
yeah.
Like a showing off endurance thing. But it's always fun, actually.
We probably covered most of what the film has to offer, but nonetheless, Kyp, I want to make sure that you've shared everything you want to share about the film.
Oh yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about it. Thank you for the invitation. There was a handful of films, that I thought we could be interesting, but somehow I feel like not enough people know about this one, and I think it's a very good one.
Yeah. And I guess if you don't mind, I wanted to ask. Sometimes when we have musicians on, I want to know about their perspective when they see other musicians being, like being the subject of a documentary. I mean, people are interested in you and your work as well. So, like, how do you see that? I mean, do you think you see it differently because you're thinking like, oh yeah, I've been on stage with this person, or like I've had a similar experience, or I wouldn't want to reveal this much, or whatever, as opposed to somebody who just is watching as an outsider?
I think that I mean I only know my own head, but I think that it can be a terrible experience, having that kind of scrutiny if the person that is shooting and making the film doesn't know how to connect, like, and doesn't know how to dance. But if someone knows how to dance, then like it can actually be you you know, like, also, like, who knows how many things were not included of potentially Grace being like, get the fuck out of my face, I don't want to see you today, you know, like, who knows, you know, like, it didn't seem like that was the nature of that relationship. I think that they have a very respectful relationship. That's the impression I got hearing them talk and watching them at the premiere. But I think that it's like there is first of all, like, no matter what anyone says, if someone makes a life choice to be on stage in front of people, they want attention. Like, it might be complicated. They might have, like, yeah, it might be complicated, but they want attention. So like there is like there's a reason why it's easier. I don't know why there's a lot of documentaries about musicians and bands. Like, it's a natural marriage in some ways, you know. But yeah, but definitely it's also having experienced it a little bit, like, it's a very delicate thing. If someone knows how to dance and knows how to, like, duck when they need to duck, and, like, you know, it's like just like gaining trust, you know, like, it's a lifelong I don't know, it can be a lifelong human endeavor for anyone, but like in that particular situation, like you have like such a limited window, and like I think that it's like a kind of a miracle when there's a good documentary, and it's great that there's so many miracles, actually, you know. Yeah, I haven't checked out your archive yet of everything, but I'm excited to hear more of your show, because I think it's actually a very interesting, like, rabbit hole that you guys chose to go down, actually.
That's very nice to hear. It is certainly a rabbit hole, but we enjoy it. We find it interesting. It's really flattering that you would agree to chat with us about this, because we both have been a big admirer of what you've been doing for many years. And I know Andy saw you play here in San Diego, I don't know, a few weeks ago or something, and spoke highly of it. So yeah, we definitely encourage our listeners to go out and see Kyp Malone. It's the Rainbow Love Machine. Is that what's going on right now?
I mean, so I haven't really I think I'm just dropping the pretense of project names, and I'm just gonna get over myself and put my name on a t-shirt. There was always a thing, just like, you have to have a name, so I don't have to put my name on a shirt for merch or something. But it's like, it's too confusing. I think I'm just gonna, like, yeah. I'm changing my name to Grace Jones.
All right, well then, people, buy your bootleg Kyp Malone t-shirts while you can, while his name is still Kyp Malone. And anyway, yeah, man, thank you so much. This was a real pleasure and a great documentary. We, as you could tell from the what we had to say, we recommend it, and we recommend people check it out. And yeah, check out everything Kyp is doing, and TV on the Radio, and all the other awesome work you're doing. But thank you very much, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a nice night. Talk to you somewhere in the world again.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed listening to us talk to Kyp as much as we enjoyed talking to him. You may have noticed that Andy's audio dropped out at one point, the old technical difficulty stuff. But I think we really want to hear from Kyp, not from me and Andy in this one anyway. Anyway, thanks for listening to Rock Talks. If you like what you heard, please go ahead and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you found us. It helps other folks find out about the show. Let us know what you think about the show on Twitter or wherever else. X, I don't know, whatever it's called. We love hearing suggestions and documentary recommendations from listeners. Rock Talks is a Treble media podcast. Treble is a fully independent media outlet devoted to music. You can find out more at treblezine.com. If you'd like to support the community of writers and creators behind Treble, please head to patreon.com/treblezine. And yeah, thanks for listening.
I've been around the block too many times. Around the globe is more like it.
Very tacky, isn't it?
We are visual artists. We know what things look like. I'm giving you guys stuff you don't deserve.
I'm angry. Give me a break.
Sometimes you have to be a high-line bitch.
I am the one doing the show.
I don't strike without a warning.
Don't make me lose it.
I give a warning.
I am paying for this myself, so artistically, we can do what we want to do.
I got so much rage. That person that I become is my God. The way I would move my head on the stage, it's really funny.
Cause I won't give in and I won't feel guilty. Absolutely breathtaking.
I'm so happy we going to Jamaica with the family so that you get the history.
Everybody I noticed in the Jones family, they act younger as they get older.
Oh, Lord, you're joking.
That's a Jones. Did you ever think that Grace would be a movie?
Sure, baby.
My knees always go weak. Love does that. Deep, deep love.
I'm human, man. I'm human.
I'm a gypsy, please.
When I die, I want to die happy.
Holding somebody's hand.